Jim Henderson's Black and Gold Review is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And 2017 Nissan Titan. With America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job. And Slidell Memorial Hospital in partnership with Ochsner.
Saints coming off the edge. The ball is popped up into the air. Intercepted by Cam Jordan for the touchdown.
What? Cam Jordan, of all people. Hi, everyone. The Saints are making moves alongside the voice on that call. Jim Henderson, I'm Juan Kincaid. Listen, the 500 curse is over.
Finally above 500. Now, is the home field advantage back as well? I guess maybe we'll find out after the Packer game when they come home for a two-game homestand. Yeah.
Slow down when it comes.
Don't want to
home.
get ahead of ourselves too
No,
much.
we do not. Not with this football team. Let's get you right to the headlines. And first off, what a crazy game. What a bizarro game, if you will.
Only game in NFL history to end 52-38. 3 defensive touchdowns for the Saints, a franchise record. Fumble recovery, 2 interceptions. Brees' streak of 200-yard passing games snapped at 50 games, and yet the Saints won. They rushed for more yards than they passed, first time since 2009, and of course they win that one as well. And it's the first defensive lineman to score a touchdown for the Saints since 2009. Now that was Anthony Hargrove. You remember him?
I think they call him Anthony Hargrove.
Anthony and Natlin. and that occurred. You know, he's an undersized defensive tackle, very active, and so he scores. He was a good story that year too.
Yes, he was.
In the Super Bowl year. But also, this is a first defensive lineman to score a touchdown on an interception that I can recall. And you'll remember this guy, Juan. 1983, Reggie Lewis, an undersized defensive end for the Saints, scored an interception touchdown. None since.
Yeah.
And we've also been looking into the fact, was this the first time in NFL history that 2 defensive linemen have intercepted passes for touchdowns? We haven't been able to find out the answer to that. But when I do, I'll call you tonight.
We should have asked our producer, John Bennett, to get on that.
He'd know that. Well, yeah, he's been busy, too.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about this game, Jim, it was such a long game. I'm surprised you still had a voice on the radio. A long, almost a 4-hour football game. And part of the reason why, some very bizarre calls by the referees.
Yeah, Saints had 13 penalties. Jeff Triplett was the referee, and he's one of those guys that you can always expect some funny things to happen when he's the referee. I mean, he had wrong teams being penalized, he had wrong players being penalized, he had wrong numbers being penalized. He had 2 penalties in a row against Senio Kelemete for lining up wrong on the extra point.
He was like, what, me? What?
Yeah. And Sean Payton was incensed throughout the game. You know, Boger and Triplett, I think, are the 2 referees that come to mind that really get under his skin, oftentimes early in the game, and it just keeps getting worse.
Here's one of the lowlights right now.
Dolphins and the Jets.
Number 89, offense. Hitting in the head and neck area of the defensive player. Half the distance to the goal, still second down.
Josh Hill was like, what did I do?
What did I do? That's a tight end for hitting a defenseless defender. I didn't think you could be a defenseless defender.
I don't think you can either. Let's get to headline number 2. Adrian Peterson, talk about a trade, Jim, that paid off for both sides.
Yeah, and good for him. You know, it was never going to work here. He said he was praying to go somewhere else. He obviously went to a place of great need. The Cardinals had the worst rushing attack in the NFL when they got him. Look what he did, 26 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the Saints profited by really not having him there because, you know, it became such an issue. How many touches is AP getting? He's not getting enough, spreading him around. I mean, in the first game against the Vikings, I think all 3 backs got the same number of touches. Just wasn't working. You saw what Ingram and Kamara did when they got the bulk of the work yesterday.
It's about opportunity for him and also about Ingram and Kamara. Headline number 3. Defensive deflections, and there were a ton of them, Jim, in the game yesterday.
Yeah, nobody defected either that we're aware of.
Although, towards the end of the game, probably some of them should, the way they were playing defensively and offensively.
Well, 16 deflections against Detroit. That's the most since they started keeping this stat in 2006. 9 tipped passes by the defensive line. That's the most in the NFL, too, since they became officially tracked in 2006. I mean, we remarked in the course of the broadcast and afterward, I could recall in years past, recent years past, they'd go game after game after game, not even getting their hands on the ball, and look at all those deflections yesterday.
Sean Vazan said this is something they probably saw on film. They had to see it on film. This is a way to get to Stafford.
Well, Stafford wasn't going to hold the ball very long because of his injuries and because the offensive line is so porous. Also, he doesn't really have deep threats as receivers. They're all pretty much intermediate threats. And last week against the Carolina Panthers, if you watch that game, as I'm sure the Saints did, he only threw 2 passes in excess of 20 yards, both incomplete.
Headline number 4, Cam can do it all, as in Cam Jordan. What a great game for him. His 101st game with the Saints, his 100th start.
Yeah, and he's never missed a game with the Saints. He's been very durable. You'd have to say he's probably the defensive leader, wouldn't you? I mean, he's always so upbeat. He plays the game with such verve. The first time he's ever scored in the NFL. What a day he had. 5 tackles, 3 pass breakups, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 7 quarterback hurries, 2 quarterback hits, and the interception for the touchdown, his second career interception.
And still perhaps the most underrated defensive player in the entire NFL. Headline number 5, right side of injuries. Maybe the most important thing about this football team right now, they're getting healthy at the right time.
Well, you know, the bye came early this year, but it came at a good time because they got Teron Armstead back. They got Willie Snead back. They're probably about as healthy as they've been all year now, with the exception of Bro and Streif. But they're getting healthier. They showed that in the game. And they caught the Lions at such a good time health-wise. They have their bye this week. So they really limped into that game yesterday with a lot of injuries. And in the course of it, they lost their 2 best players. There's one of them, Golden Tate, the wide receiver. He had to leave with a shoulder injury. You also saw Glover Quinn carted off, the safety who's been such a thorn in the side of the Saints down through the years. He's in concussion protocol. So all those things really contributed to the Saints winning the game, along with Matthew Stafford. What a warrior he is. I mean, you got to really hand it to the guy. He could have asked out of that one at any point late in the game when they were down by so many, played to the end, took a beating, and never stopped trying.
Real quickly, Jim, we may have seen the future offensive line for this Saints team yesterday. Finally, 5 guys that we expect to see on the field for the Saints next year. That's where the health has helped this team as well.
Yeah, it really has. Ramczyk moved to right tackle, where you expect him to play for Streif eventually. Having Armstead back, you could move Pete back into his natural position at left guard. Armstead played great. Sean will address that soon. So for the first time, there was really some continuity on the offensive line. And if they can keep these guys together, it's going to be huge. It really all starts there. If you look at teams that are struggling, oftentimes just go right to the offensive line. The Lions last week and the Packers this week, they've got some problems along the offensive line.
And Drew Brees stayed upright the entire game. Coming up, Sean Vazan, as Jim mentioned, joins us to break down the tape on Teron Armstead's impactful debut. And speaking of returns, Jim just mentioned it, Delvin Breaux not far away from getting back on the field. What to expect from the New Orleanian when we come back.
You're watching the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Review.
Everybody in tight. Handoff goes to the tailback, and running near sideline and into the end zone is Mark Ingram for the score.
The left side of the offensive line's back intact, and Mark Ingram, of course, benefiting there. And I don't know what that dance was, but it brings us to Sean Vazan, who I bet can do that dance as we talk tape with Teron Armstead. What a big deal to have him back.
No doubt about it. Hello, gentlemen, by the way.
Nice to have you back.
3 in a row. I think it's all because
Really?
of Jim. I really do.
Well,
Lost in the
I'll take
shelf
the
in one of the wildest games we have ever witnessed was the season debut of left tackle Teron Armstead. In his first game since suffering that shoulder injury back in the offseason, I was expecting to see some signs of rust. I was wrong. Armstead stepped right in and was the Armstead of old. Let's begin with pass protection, where the Saints trusted Armstead on the edge without help on a lot of plays. He spent most of his day one-on-one with Ziggy Ansah. At one point in time, Ansah was considered one of the NFL's top pass rushers. He came into the game with 4 sacks. But against Armstead, he was a non-factor. In the first quarter, Ansah tried to use speed to get the corner on Armstead. Armstead shielded him away from number 9. Later, he tried to use power with a bull rush. Armstead stopped him in his tracks. On Ted Ginn Jr.'s touchdown catch, Armstead kept Ansah well out of Drew Brees' reach before getting an assist from Andrus Peat. Later in the first quarter, again, Ansah used power. Again, Armstead won the battle. In all, Armstead and Ansah battled one-on-one in 9 different passing situations. By my count, Armstead won every single one. But on a day when the Saints had their highest rushing total of the season, the O-line had to play a pivotal role. Armstead excelled and flashed both his power and athleticism. On the third play of the game, Armstead shows his strength by completely turning around defensive tackle A'Shawn Robinson on an Alvin Kamara run. Later in the quarter, he goes straight to the second level and completely moves Tahir Whitehead out of the play. Again in the first, watch him set up George Johnson, swing him towards the backfield, then rumble downfield looking for someone to block, and finally finds Glover Quinn. His best play, though, was in the second quarter when he pulled on a Kamara toss and completely flattened Darius Slay, springing Kamara for a 21-yard gain. Now, the Saints actually took Armstead out of the game after they went up 45-10 in the third quarter, but they reinserted him when the Lions cut the lead to 21. Peyton said that was the plan, but I wonder if the late comeback forced the Saints to bring him back in when they wanted him to rest the rest of the way. Either way, it's good to see old number 72 back. And that, by the way, was supposed to be your 2018 starting offensive line. It came a little bit early. It was a great game by them.
Best rushing performance by the Saints, so no coincidence with Armstead back, running to the left as the Saints have been wont to do down through their history when Armstead's healthy, and he provides some touchdown blocking.
He was excellent, pass pro, run blocking. Also, Andrus Peat had a very good game as well. It really was a good game for the offensive line in its entirety.
No doubt about that. As you can see, Sean is our study master. Each Thursday night on Game Plan at 10:35, he looks back on the key plays from the previous week. And then Sunday mornings, he's on Tailgate. He'll give you a preview of the opposition that you won't see anywhere else. Time now to get to a question. This submitted on the Final Play app using the Final Word feature. It comes from George in Poydras. He asks, when will we see Delvin Breaux?
Well, he's eligible to play, what, Week 9 against the Buccaneers? He'd be allowed back at practice this week. Today, in his conference call, Sean Payton was kind of non-committal about whether he would come back to practice this week. And then I guess the question is, when he is ready to play, and if you're still as healthy as you are right now in your secondary, where do you play him?
That's a great question, and before these last couple of weeks, I would have said it's a no-brainer. You put him in, you reinsert him back into the starting lineup. I don't think that's the case right now. I really don't. Ken Crawley and Marshawn Lattimore, they've got some good chemistry on the outside, and they've been using Kenny Vaccaro, not P.J. Williams, at that nickel cornerback position. I guess that's based on matchups, and I know P.J. Williams is kind of in the doghouse right now, really since the Miami game. But you know, Breaux coming back, I wouldn't surprise me at all if it takes him a couple of games to kind of get reacclimated to everything and then figure out a spot for him. I know this, you'd rather have too many than not enough, and right now the Saints, especially when Breaux comes back, will have too many.
I was going to say, it's about time the Saints called a break at cornerback because the last 2 years, that's been one of their most injury-prone areas on the football team, and they're finally catching a bit of luck.
What did they do, go through 6 of them last year?
Yeah, crazy. All right, Sean, stick around. Much more from you in just a bit. Cam Jordan put up one of the most diverse stat lines you could dream for as a defensive lineman. We'll examine just how much he is able to excel with the pass rush around him this year. Stay with us.
You're watching the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Review.
Welcome back, and knowing what we know now, let's revisit some of our storylines. First and foremost, let's talk about Cam Jordan. And Jim, we talked about this going into the break, is that when you look at all the defensive tackles, defensive ends in the NFL, he may be the most underrated one that no one's talking about.
Yeah, I would agree, and probably because he's been a part of such bad defenses recently. And if he were to come up this big in a nationally televised game with a lot on the line and the Saints playing well defensively, he probably would get more recognition. I'll be really surprised and really disappointed if he's not the NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Well, look, he's been very good his entire career. He's having a great season, and Dennis Allen is using him in a lot of different matchups. I got the list right here. He played left, he played right end, he played 5 technique defensive end, he played 3 technique defensive tackle. He stood up as the edge pass rusher, he dropped into coverage, and he also played inside at the nose. So Cam Jordan is a guy that's he's really elevated. Like I said, he was very good, but I feel like he's kind of elevated himself to, dare I say, elite status. And you don't really hear that much with Saints defenders, but this has been a long time coming. It's been a steady climb for him. He's never really had a down year, but he's steadily going up, and he's done well.
We got a chance to see yesterday a little bit of help from Alex Okafor getting the sack in the game at the beginning. That's kind of helped Cam as well. They can no longer shift all their focus on stopping Jordan. But if Okafor continues to provide some help like that, that front four, especially on the bookends, could be crazy.
Really could. And you know, you look at Cam Jordan, he's really taken on and embraced the leadership role. We mentioned earlier his personality, and we saw him in training camp, both up in West Virginia and here. When they run gassers at the end of practice, he's always the first guy across the field. So he leads by example. He's a very vivacious character, a very outgoing guy, and he's a great voice in the locker room as well.
There's no doubt about it. He's a high character guy as well. So he deserves the success he's having right now because he's playing on a lot of bad football teams, and he's always been the best player on a bad defense. This year, he's the best player on what looks like a pretty good defense.
Speaking of best players, another guy we want to revisit here, Adrian Peterson. Of course, you know about the trade now, going out to Arizona. His first game is pretty good. I mean, he gets into the end zone, and really, it was what Sean Payton said. It's all about opportunity to touch the ball. Here, there's 3 guys to share the ball with. In Arizona, he's the lead guy right away, which kind of tells you how desperate they are for a guy to run the ball there.
Yeah, and they lost a great player in Johnson, and there were holes for him. I never saw him have a hole in New Orleans. You know, he was always getting hit behind the line or getting hit at the line. Very seldom did he ever do anything yards before contact. And look at what a year Mark Ingram's having now that he truly is the bell cow, which he should have been all along. We talked about that down through the weeks when Adrian was here. You just can't get this guy out of the lineup because he helps you in so many ways. You can see he's become a pretty good pass receiver as well, and Kamara just gets better and better every week and doesn't make any rookie mistakes.
Look, Adrian Peterson is the type of back that needs 26 carries, he'll get 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on the same day he did that, the Saints topped their season total in terms of rushing. 37 rushes, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is the definition of what Sean Payton called a win-win. Both sides are now better because of this trade. So I think this is beautiful. This is great. There's no one, everybody wants to see AP successful, but he got that opportunity in Arizona. The Saints are better for it. The Cardinals are better for it.
I don't know if you guys agree with this. I heard a national broadcaster saying today if if Alvin Kamara didn't have to share the backfield with Mark Ingram, we'd be talking about Kamara as the Rookie of the Year on offense.
Well, there are a few other candidates for that job, including the running back in Kansas City, for that accolade, I should say. I don't know if you want to. I'm surprised personally how well he's running between the tackles because he's not the biggest guy, but he's got great vision, great acceleration. He's stronger than he looks for his size. But I just don't know if you want to put that much of a strain on him. I think he's great in this complimentary role.
Well, look, it would never happen in New Orleans anyway. Sean Payton would never have one back getting 30-plus carries a game, plus a guy like Kamara that's going to get 6-7 catches a game, maybe even get some special team snaps. So I think Kamara has the perfect head coach for his skill set right now.
You're right about that. All right, so right now they're 3-2, and you got 5 more games on the schedule here going forward, all very winnable games. Look at the schedule here. Only one team is well, 3 teams are above 500, but almost 500 teams. You got Green Bay coming up. We know what's up with Aaron Rodgers there, not playing. Chicago at home, Tampa Bay at home, at Buffalo, winnable game, against Washington here at home. 3 of the next 5 inside of your own building. We talked earlier about the whole home field advantage, hoping it comes back. What better time for it to come back than right now?
That's true, and we'll see what Green Bay can do without Aaron Rodgers. As I said earlier in the newscast, to me, he's the most valuable player for his team than any other player in the NFL. You could see that by the way the line shifted. It was going to be, it shifted 10 points from a 6.5-point favorite for Green Bay in Green Bay with Rodgers, and after he got hurt, the Saints became 3.5-point.
There is simply no other player in the NFL that would have a 10-point shift in the odds makers' eyes. You just showed the graphic. Now is the time to make the run. If you're going to make the run, you got to do it now, not up and down. Kenny Vaccaro said we don't want to be a yo-yo team. That's the perfect way to describe it. You got some momentum. You got some confidence. This is as confident as I've ever seen this locker room since 2013. So you got the chance here to really make a run. You have to take advantage of it.
Is it important to be cautious going forward as well? Look past the Green Bay game where you have an advantage with the quarterback right there. But when you've got Chicago and Tampa Bay coming into the Dome where you haven't played well in the last 2 years, important to be cautious going forward but still be confident.
I think they have every reason to be confident. And also with Tampa Bay, you don't know what Jameis Winston's status is going to be like.
Shoulder,
He'll probably be back. It doesn't look like a serious injury, but he's had that shoulder problem before. He's not enjoying the greatest of years for the most part right now anyway, so that'll be crucial for that game.
But that Tampa is always a weird game.
It is
always a weird game. And Mitchell Trubisky is starting to get a little bit of confidence. And Green Bay, obviously, you lose the best player in the NFL. But it wouldn't shock me at all if Sean Payton was on his guys like white on rice this week because he knows if they start to get confident and relax and lose focus, you got to stay focused in this game. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Sean Payton was not the most pleasant guy to be around
Don't
practice
eat
this
the
week.
cheese, right?
Exactly. Don't eat the
love
cheese.
cheese, especially Green Bay cheese. Oh, I can't wait to get to Wisconsin. By the way,
You will be eating cheese in Green Bay.
That's right.
a little
weekend.
bit.
Yeah.
They got some there here.
Yeah, I think they do.
All 5 games, by the way, on Sunday on Fox 8, and the Saints have a winning record on Fox 8. Of
course.
Keep them there all the time.
They do.
Time now for some more viewer entries from the Final Play app. We call this our Who Dat Nation summation, the most consistent theme we heard this week. What a crazy and awesome game. My heart almost comes out of my chest. Do you think the Saints can make the playoffs?
Wow.
Jonathan and Kenner. Playoffs?
Playoffs?
Talk to me about playoffs.
Playoffs?
But listen,
Playoffs?
it kind of goes back to their next 5 games, all winnable games, ones they should probably be favored in. And if you get those 5 wins there, boy, you've set yourself up pretty well.
I think this is it. The next couple of weeks here will determine how far this season goes. But to answer the question, yes. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, look around the NFC. What other team intimidates you? I know Philadelphia is having a great year. You know, Carolina's top of the division, but you've already beaten them. I don't think Atlanta is scary. Plus, they always play up when they play Atlanta. So, yes, absolutely. I think they can.
Probably the only one that would have intimidated you was the Green Bay Packers.
Exactly, the Green Bay Packers in
And now they're
Lambeau.
missing Rodgers in Lambeau.
No doubt.
All right, Sean, thank you very much once again. Very nice job. Coming up, a look ahead to new Packers quarterback Brett Hundley. What can the Saints expect against the least experienced passer they will have seen this year?
You're watching the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Review.
All right, time to turn the page on the Lions and over to the Packers, which means Aaron Rodgers out, Brett Hundley, who in?
Brett Hundley, 5th-round draft choice out of UCLA, drafted 147th overall. Yesterday, when he had to come into the game, he threw an interception on his very first pass. In the course of the game, he threw 3 of them. He did throw a touchdown pass, 18 for 33 for 157 yards, but no pass longer than 26 yards downfield. And if you're wondering who his backup is, should he be hurt, it's a guy by the name of Joe Callahan, who's from the Division III Wesley Wolverines.
You know what Wesley did last year?
I follow them
They were
all the time.
fantastic.
I love the Wolverines.
Yeah, Wolverines.
The Wesley Wolverines.
The
Those
Wesley-
Wolverines.
Oh, those Wolverines. Saints can't make him look like an all-star.
No, they can't.
Bottom line. All right, until then, for Jim, Sean, and everyone here at Fox 8, I'm Juan Kincaid. Thanks for watching. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Have a great night.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Review.